As weird as it is to say, it's better to get into an abusive contest than to do nothing.
Feeling like he's small right now, but I think this person will be in 1 or 2 years back there because he puts in that work and that drive. Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz, and my amigo over here.
I am the amigo, and my name is Sean. Welcome, everybody, to another episode without a guest. We're doing it just you and me again. This is great.
Isn't it weird being like old school and just like, oh, now we have to come up with topics and we have to talk about what's going on in the world and, being,
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? When we have a guest, it's like, we're like, okay, well, this will be easy, right? We'll just talk a little bit about what they like to talk about, right?
Yeah.
We're getting better, though. We got like a book, that one podcast, and we're talking about the book, and stuff like that. So, so anyway, guys, get ready. We're only going to talk about aliens a little bit today, other than that one pod a few back. But how are you, man? How is your creative world right now? What's Fitz's creative world look like?
My world is actually kind of going good, I think. Very, very busy. What is a lot of stress, but in the end it's good for the wallet because you don't spend as much, but you work a lot and you just freak out a lot, the typical freelance thing where you kind of want to be and don't want to be.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been talking to so many people recently where they keep saying, I don't really want more clients. And I totally feel that, right? Like if you get to that place, you're just like, no, I could get more money, but then I'll pull my hair out. So you're in that place where you've gotten clients now. Congrats.
Yeah.
Have lots of clients.
We take that. We need that. And we want more of you because apparently, nothing is forever. So this is also a thing where you have to think about, even if things are running smoothly,
right?
It's better to have always a couple in the chamber, and just okay, we're ready for whatever is happening. It's all about cash flow in and less about actually finishing the work, what is kind of bad advice, but it's the most important thing to stay in business. You know what I mean? It's should you overload yourself or should you just be comfortable? Because if you're comfortable, it might be oh, now one client is drying up and something's happening because there's always something happening. You got a story that we cannot share, but
oh well, you're gonna just tease the people out there. Things change, clients change. So yeah, definitely. There's been so many times I've been at the top of my game, top of the world, and then fast forward a couple months later, and I'm at the bottom. So that's just the freelance world. I think it's feast and famine, and the thing is that when you have the feast, you really need to plan for the famine, and the same thing in the famine. I've learned you have to plan for the feast. So one thing I've been doing recently is trying to get that network of people now. I don't have any work right now, but I'm kind of telling people that when the work comes, it's going to fly in at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and I'm maybe going to need some people to help.
Yeah, that's usually like that though, because in the beginning, it's when you start out and you're just you talk to a bunch of people, they maybe don't have anything right now, but when you then actually oh, it's a couple months later, they're oh, I actually got a budget, I have a thing going on, but you talked in with 50, 40, whatever-ish people, and now they're all hitting you up at the time frame because maybe at the moment it's nothing, but maybe they hit you immediately up, but maybe it's now we're going hard, and you're just now you have to be picky and choosy, and it can be helpful.
Yeah, and what's been interesting is I since my start of my freelance career, it's been pretty consistent throughout the year, but this was the first year where I really felt the July slowdown, and now I'm feeling the September sprint, the speed up, which is a lot of people in the business world kind of know of this. They know that it slows down a lot in the summer, and then it really picks up around now in September, October, because people are trying to use their budgets right before the end of the year, and everyone goes on the holidays because once you get to the end of November, everyone's checked out. You're probably half the people aren't even going to work, half the people don't have budgets, and so everyone's trying to use their budget now. So it's so I'm really taking advantage of that of you know what, September is the time actually, that's the time to push it, get the new clients, because it's the last hurrah before we go into winter really.
It's kind of funny in business. There's always those seasons of some industries, let's say you do YouTube reviews, and review time right now is prime time. You want to pump out as many videos about gear, tech, and whatever there is, and you basically will be oh yeah, there's a lot of consumerism happening, and people are buying stuff because everything is getting released in September, October, always. Sometimes in November, what is weird in my eyes because it's way too late. You kind of miss the Black Friday, and you miss you miss the marketing for Christmas because it's already out and everybody's talking about it. It will hit right on Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. So even me in my painting world, I've had your help. I'm getting photos of paintings just like this, and getting kind of ready for the holiday season, right? I've always made that mistake, right? We get to like the end of October, early November, and then I'm thinking, wait, now's the holiday season, but it's already too late. You don't have the products made. You haven't got them online yet. So I'm trying to be better about that now. Am I going to do it in time? I don't know, but I'm trying. I'm trying to get the store up for my stuff quickly. Just understanding that. The planning ahead's hard. I think something me and my girlfriend have been talking about recently is we like to go on trails in Colorado that are kind of the more scenic, like the ones you'll see in Instagram reels and stuff, the ones that are like epic. But what's hard is you have to like schedule the parking. It's weird. It didn't used to be like this. You have to schedule to park at these trailheads like 7 months ahead, 8 months ahead. How can you plan that far ahead? Same thing in Florida. Some of the coolest spots in Florida to camp on the beach, it's like we're out to June of next year right now. And it's like, how can you even plan that far ahead? It's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like one of those weird things where you would be like, oh yeah, there should be like a train going there. There should be like an Uber or a situation, because that should be not a problem. But on the other side, it's also really good. Like, it limits the amount of people, and it's probably better to have the trail a little bit empty.
Right.
But you have to worry about parking, because the opposite will be like it's slammed and there's 500 people and you're just like walking in a line through like nature.
100%. Yeah. So, but the planning ahead though. So even with my business, I'm trying to do the same thing, right? Is like, we're getting into awards season 2. So I've never really entered my awards. That's something my work for awards.
Yeah.
It's something that I've kind of struggled with over the years. I have before. I've like entered into Addies. I've entered into Webbies. I've entered things into competitions. I've never won any real prize. I think if I did, maybe I'd be more into it, but, I can get into other stuff with it. I won't, but I'm trying to get into that this year. I'm trying to be like, okay, the awards season's coming up. Do you have work that's like worthy of that? And I actually do. I feel like I have like 1 or 2 projects this year that I'm pretty proud of that, I'm going to try to enter this year, because I need more of that. That's one thing I'm finding more is that I have great work, but I don't have those types of like, I don't have the awards. I don't have these like kind of bigger names of things yet. So I'm trying to get stuff like that kind of in place now.
Yeah, that brings me actually back to my past when I was like, when I was an inspiring filmmaker, basically. I was like, okay, I'll do the YouTube videos, I'll do the vlogging, and I had my first client who paid me like absolutely terrible, but it's like, hey, he lets me shoot him and he's getting video, and I'm like, I can get paid? And I'm like, what?
Right.
And then I'm like, everything, I was like, okay, we're gonna try to make some money with this, because like there's people out there making videos and they're getting paid, That's kind of how I get started with that, besides like the YouTube. But I was like, let's try to enter a film competition, because like the client, he was a fitness trainer, and he's like, oh, there's actually a competition going on, and whoever makes like a good video that is creative, funny, entertaining, whatever, can win $10,000. And they had me at the $10,000, and I'm like, okay, let's make a short movie, Yeah. I'm like, how hard can it be? And I specifically he wrote the script, and he was acting, and I got like a couple other people together, and I basically did my first short film, and it was like so much work.
Yeah. I mean, me, my problem is perfection. I'm a perfectionist. So like, I get into these projects where I'm like, we'll just quickly enter, fast forward 2 weeks later, and I'm just pounding away at this thing like, oh my God, we're literally only halfway done with this. So, recently I've entered a couple grants and things like that, because why not, right? Kind of how we talked about on the episode with David is like, once you kind of get your like, your set together of stuff, then it's like, it's easier, right? So like, same thing with contests is like, I kind of have things a little bit templated and kind of ready to go for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in that same spot of like, I have to be very careful when I enter stuff too, because it can become like my full-time thing, which it really shouldn't be.
Yeah, but on that note, I think it's very powerful to make it a full-time thing, because you push the envelope. And in the beginning, I did not do that, In the beginning, I was like, oh, I just make videos and I make them as good as I can. But then I was like, oh, wait a second. Now I have to learn about scripting. Now I have to learn about like, how do you cut something so you convey the emotion and stuff like that. And in the beginning, you think you're the best, whatever you submit, it's like, if I would make a movie, it would be so good, I would do this and this, and I would combine this and this, but the difference is like actually doing the thing versus like thinking I could do, because there's like worlds in between.
Yeah, I run into that a lot with people where they get very frustrated when the rewards don't come quickly. I think a lot of people, web design world, graphic design world for sure, that like, they're, you know what, I see myself really mastering this in a year and being like a creative director in 2 years and already going on to my next career in 3 years. And I think they were really disappointed really quickly when they, I think the biggest mistake you can make is thinking that you're going to be different than everyone else. And I'm not saying that in like a negative way, like your journey will be different, but yeah, there's a reason people don't fly through these careers easily. I always have to remind people, like, there's a reason not everybody's a web developer. It is difficult still.
Yeah. I mean, like, with that being said, though, it's like one of the things where I'm like, oh, you can actually make money with it if it's your main goal, you know, because there's like, even for movies and everything, there's so many awards, there's so many things going on, so many competitions. Like, if you actually find the resources, so I would highly recommend, actually, if you're like, you have some free time and you need more money, look up like all the competitions where you can submit work or grants and whatever. There's always help out there, and we don't know because we don't look for it, because we expect like, oh yeah, we need a client to pay us, but there's so many tools out there, so many opportunities that we are not like really aware of. Like, let's talk about the Shorty Award or whatever that was, submit like a little brief description about your business, get $20,000 if they like it, easy money by wave. I would do it,
Yeah. I think of these things too. Back in school, how many essays did you have to write back in school? How many of these things did you have to do that led to nothing? So it's like, you might as well, right? Yeah. And it's just practice to talk about yourself, So for everyone out there, there's a lot of awards out there. If you're a design professional, marketing professional, I would say, check out AAF. So that stands for American Advertising Federation. Check them out. They have local chambers pretty much all over the U.S. Get involved in that. They're always doing Addy Awards on kind of a state level. That's a good thing to get your foot in the door. I've definitely entered into those, never have won one. And one thing I do want to say, one caveat, and I got to be kind of not political about this, is that, sometimes these things kind of, sometimes it can come down to nepotism. It can come down to like who knows who, things like that. Then that can be discouraging. I've definitely entered things in competitions and the winner wasn't as good as mine, but they're just kind of more connected. But don't let that break you down, right? Yeah. I think even entering stuff looks good in a way. I think it's like people do like that you're at least trying to put your stuff out there. Yeah.
On that note, though, when you say like, they may be like more famous or they have like connections and whatever, but the good thing about doing work is like you can document that you're doing work.
100%.
And that is like the thing. Like if you have a phone and you set it up there and you do your drawings or whatever, and you're entering a competition, this is good content. People are like, oh, there's a competition going on and he's preparing for it, and like now he's doing all those things. It's like kind of like a story, will he win on the end, will he not win, is this good enough, is this not good enough, what is the competition doing, and this will be like easy marketing material, because like just one post sometimes gets you work, and that is like the weird part where especially in the video world, is like everybody's posting like, oh, I'm so good, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, like the super fakeness, but that still leads to more work, because if you don't post, people only think about the person who's posting.
Right.
So that's the annoying part about it.
Well, exactly. Because that is the hard part, right? Is when business slows, you don't have as much to share, but you need to share to get more business. So it becomes this weird catch-22. So
those awards are like the way to go, I think.
Yeah. So to enter awards, there's things out there too where they'll give you a prompt and you design something or you make something for it. So it sounds like it was like that for you, where it kind of said, make a video and submit it for this competition. And with that, I would say a caveat for that is everyone be kind of careful. Obviously, there's some competitions out there that are really just abusing artists and designers. You have to be very careful about those, where they they just don't want to pay for the work. So they're like, well, if we make a competition, everyone will do it for free.
Basically,
I have a company, I'm not going to name names, where they recently they value branding so little, and they know me. What's interesting is I'm doing other stuff for the project, and they could easily just ask me like, oh, what would it be to create a branding project? But instead, they were rather like, let's make a competition and put it out, make a logo, and then we'll make it the brand. And guess what? There's still no logo for the brand, because of course nobody gave them anything great in like a couple weeks. But be careful of stuff like that. If it feels like they're abusing it, then I would actually say don't do it unless you really absolutely are going to get something out of it. So always be very careful at the beginning of the process of like, what's the value here? So it has to bring you some value. It can't be something that is going to waste your time, but but it's worth getting out there. That's something that I haven't done enough. Back in college, I did so great. I would enter things, I'd get scholarships, I would enter competitions, things like that. And once I got in the professional world, I just felt like I didn't have enough time ever. So it's like, you really do. You have to make that time to scope out, like, how do I, especially if you have something you're really proud of, it's like, that's the worst thing ever, is there's work that I've done years and years ago that people have just never seen. And it's like, why? Like, it's so cool. You got to get it out there somehow. You have to get it in front of people.
Yeah. I mean, like, you mentioned, like, the negative side of that thing, and you're completely right. There's a lot of, like, abuse going on with, like, leverage of, like, oh, yeah, I'll pay $500 and 30 people will commit some work,
right,
commit to some work. But basically, in the end, it's like, I only pick one and only one gets paid,
Right.
And that can be, like, very discouraging. But if you think about it, it's still, you will still get the title. You still will get the practice, And if they use it or don't use it, doesn't really matter, because you should only do that if you have the free time and you want to sharpen your knife. And that's how I see it. Because, like, obviously, it's a little bit abusive, but it's like a good excuse to do the work, because otherwise you maybe would not do the work. And that is like the scary part, You're like, I don't have a client. Oh, yeah, let's sit on TV and watch some TV, And it's just like,
100%. Yeah. And I will say that it's as weird as it is to say, it's better to get into an abusive contest than to do nothing, right? So everyone's story is different, right? So if you're listening to this and you're just kind of sitting on the couch and you have nothing to do and you need work and you need stuff in your portfolio, that's one of the avenues. Now we've talked about other avenues, right? There's nonprofits in your town that need help, for example. Like, you could go walk down the street and go introduce yourself somewhere and say, hey, I do X, Y, and Z. I'll do it for free or cheap for you. And, there's lots of things to do. You can make your own hypothetical projects, for example. A couple young designers that I've been talking to, I've been really telling them that, like, that there's a lot of weight in that. And it's what's really funny is young designers, this is going to be a little bit on a tangent, is that the first projects they ever make, they're like, this is it. This is the Sistine Chapel. And I'm like,
masterpiece.
And it's funny because they almost get offended. I'm like, yeah, that's nice, cool, moving on. And they're like, no, this is it though. And I'm like, yeah, but you've only made like 2 projects ever. And I'm like, make 100. And then they get really turned off, like, no, I'm not gonna make 100 crappy projects. I only need 2 nice projects. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. These are gonna suck in a year. You're not gonna like these in a year. In a year, these are gonna be garbage. Make 100 of these, then you're gonna like it, okay? And so that's why I'd say to people out there too, is like, if you're sitting on your hands right now and you're just like, ugh, I don't know what to do. I put out all these emails. I went on LinkedIn. I did all these things. Nobody's giving me jobs. I don't have any work. Everyone's just telling me you don't have enough experience. You don't have enough real projects. We need real world projects. Well, then, yeah, look up the nonprofits. They need help. Come up with hypothetical things. Even look at things like rebrands. We're maybe going to talk about a couple of rebrands on this show. If you don't like a rebrand, do it yourself. Redo it, and then come up with a whole thing around that, I think just being consistently busy is really attractive to people. And so even entering things into awards. So I've even seen people that, like, they hype that part. Like, hey, dropping off my stuff for the Addies. Woohoo! They maybe never placed, but hey, they were doing something. Yeah. They're active.
And that is like the thing, because in the end, it's all about, like, you being in a community, and the community is giving you a name for what you're doing. Because, like, when you're sitting in the community and you're, like, chopping wood, you're the wood chopper. It's like, if you sell the wood or if you don't sell the wood, and if anyone... It's
your identity, though, yeah.
Yeah, if anybody, like, needs wood chopped, you're the wood chopper. They're like, yeah, I saw that guy, like, he was doing that thing, but you know, it's like, that's basically how, like, this whole job thing works in a weird way.
It does that's the thing where I start to I kind of critique myself, is when I have a client that, let's say, like, I have a web design client, but I also do logo and brand design, right? But they don't even consider me for the logo and brand design, and they go off to some other direction. That tells me that, like, they don't sense that that's my identity. Like, right when they think, dang, we need a logo, my face doesn't pop up in their mind.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, is they have to think, yeah, I need wood. Oh, well, it's the wood chopper immediately. Why would I go anywhere else?
Yeah. And it is a weird thing, and it's, like, very annoying. And we sometimes want to be free and independent, and we want to do what we feel like, because we are so much more than just work. But it's also like, life is tough, and it's like we have to fight for survival. We always have, and we always will be.
Right.
So it's like, yes, we need a job. Yes, we need to do the things that are like unsexy in a way, you know. And if it's meaning gotta post now a selfie about chopping some wood, we're gonna do that.
Right, exactly, yeah. And you know, one thing, you know, so today I'm going to be going to another networking thing here, down here in St. Pete. But you know, one thing that I keep running into at these things, and advice that I would give people too, is if you're trying to tell that story, right? So let's say you're a wood chopper, but you're also a plumber and you also repair planes. Don't do all of that at the beginning. Don't like tell me like I chop wood, I repair planes, I'm a plumber. Don't do that. No. Start it from the beginning. What is the first thing? So when I go to a networking thing, you know, Sean's done a lot of different things. Sean can do a lot of different things, but I don't say all those things, right?
Yeah.
I think you've even heard these probably at some of these events where it's just like, I am an SEO specialist, web designer, graphic designer, brand analyst, and it's like, you've lost me. It's too much stuff. I don't even know what your identity is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when I introduce myself, I'm like, yeah, I do web design.
Okay.
Simple.
And this is also like a really good tip there right now, because like it's memory, and we all know that one saying, like, what you say in the beginning and in the end matters the most. In between does not really matter as much, because like they're just like, oh, I met a guy, I forgot already the name, but I think he does websites, you know, and that's basically it. And then if you follow up with a text like, hey, my name is Sean, I'm doing websites and brand design, you know, and was nice connecting, blah blah blah, check out my latest project, or whatever you would say, you know. This will be like game changing, because then you're deeply ingrained, like, oh yeah, that was Sean, I had a good time with him, forgot the name, but now I'm like connecting with him on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, where you also follow us, Infinite Creative Podcast. Let's go. But yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, and and it's kind of, you have to, just tell the story, but tell it truthfully too. I feel like, you know, don't embellish, don't create a lot of stuff. And, you know, because what I also hear too is I'll hear, and this, I hear it go well sometimes, but sometimes people are like, you know, so I'm a web designer. So instead of saying, oh, I'm a web designer, they're like, well, I deal with telling a brand story digitally across all platforms. That's my job. And they're like, okay,
tell me more. But it's like, you know,
but like now I still don't know what you actually do. So for the wood chopper, it's be like, I split wood fibers in the forests of the world.
Yeah.
Like,
and we all know what is easier to remember: wood chopper.
Wood chopper. Yeah, exactly. Like, make it Googleable. Like SEO. Let's use SEO and how we talk, right? Yeah. What are the keywords and how we talk, even, you know?
And how often do you use them? Because that is like the other thing. Like, if you talk a lot and you have a lot of stories, you know, if there's a consistent twine going through the whole story, it's like, oh, I was a wood chopper chopping some wood, and there was a bear, like, you know, eating other wood choppers. Everybody's like, oh, they just think about wood choppers. And now we're hooked up onto wood choppers.
Wood chopper. This whole episode's called wood chopping. Wood chopping 101.
Hey, comment down below wood chopper if you are like now thinking about wood chopping. But yeah.
But yeah, no, so it's like, yeah, so exactly. It's kind of, you know, tell that story, you know, and also with SEO. So we've kind of talked in a way we didn't even know about it, but this is all about in-person SEO, right? So we just talked about keywords, but then when you think about competitions, that's the backlinks, right? And that's also important, right? Yeah. So think about what are the keywords, what are the backlinks, and what you're saying. So the keywords are like, you know, hit those things, get it in their mind easily. And then you talk about, you know, yeah, we just won an Addy Award in this, and we just placed in that, and we just worked with this big company. Those are those backlinks. And so,
and providing the content, because if you post content, anything like just meeting a person and going to their network event is like theoretically a connection point, a thing where they can experience you, and that is like physical, like in-person content, and then there's like the virtual content that you can do for free on the phone, where it's like, it's super powerful and people don't use it enough, but it's like, it's hard to have like the mental balance and mindset to deal with social media. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, because like it's really easy to get intimidated when you consume it, but you don't create, because then you look what other people do, you feel bad about yourself, and it just gets you in that negative circle of like, I don't post, I just consume, and then you're like feeling bad about not creating, and then it's like, oh, I don't even want to pick up the phone, and then, you know, you're in that spiral of negativity where it's like, okay, this is like, I put whatever on there and I don't even care.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, exactly. There's that point where you start to consume more than you create, and that can be problematic. I mean, you kind of have to keep this approach that all of this is just feedback for what you create, right?
Yeah.
You have to move in that direction. So, I think that's the interesting part is like you have to be very focused on what you do. And like you don't have to do just one thing, but you have to at least stay really focused on that one thing and kind of let people in, give them an entryway into the story. What's a cool feeling? I know everyone out there has this feeling when you discover a new person, a new show, a new something, and there's like, let's say you discover a new show and you see there's 10 seasons of that show. After you watch it a few and you're like, I'm hooked. How happy are you to now regurgitate all of that content? So it's the same thing with you, right? If you can give people a taste, get them in, hook them with something, now they're a fan. Now they're going to just want to see more stuff. We've seen that with this podcast even where people, they consume one of our episodes and they're just like, yeah, this is awesome. I just want to know more now. I want to know more and more and more of the story.
Yeah, it's also like, it's a benefit if you're like, oh, I know the people, so it's like, if you do the networking and you give them a good hook, and that could be just like being a nice person, Yeah. Sometimes that's all you really need, because like, it is all about the community. You binding and bounding with like real people, and if they like you, they will hire you, they will do business with you, and then maybe be a better woodchopper out there, but well, you didn't vibe with him, and it's like, that guy's kind of like, cold. I don't get bad vibes, and it's just like, but that other woodchopper, he does a good job, I think, and he would do good. It's like, let's get him in, because I want to hang out with him and hear more about his other stories, Well,
100%. So what you just said there, hang out with him more and hear more about his other stories. Both of those things are in person, right? In theory, at least. And one thing the other day I was watching a video of Deadmau5 where he's actually talking about how Deadmau5 got big and how Skrillex, who he put on his label, how Skrillex got big. And it was really interesting because the short of it is if Skrillex would have sent me an email with like an MP3 or MP4 or whatever to listen to the song, I would have never listened to it. I never would have opened that email. So what did Skrillex do? Is he hung out at this studio every day, just hung out, was just a fly on the wall, hanging out every day. And then one day Deadmau5 came to that studio to visit, and then Skrillex was a nice guy and handed him a USB in person. And then that's how Deadmau5 put him on his label. It was all an in-person thing. And I think a lot of professionals will tell you that you can bang your head against this wall every single day, and then you go to one meeting, meet the right guy, and it all works out. Yeah. All obstacles are removed.
Yeah, with that being said, like that is like one of those things where you kind of have to grind it out. There's like with content, with like doing social media and getting not the rewards that you want to have, it's very annoying. It's very discouraging when you're like doing something for a year or 2 years or 5 years. That's literally the story of the internet. Everybody who's successful on the internet and doing videos, usually, unless they got lucky, they usually do something for 3-5 years, then it blows up. And that is like the thing that nobody sees, but they will see like, year 6 as a new rebrand, and then it's like, they came out of nowhere. Nobody sees like the grinding, all the little lessons, how to talk, how to do things, or how to post and edit. All those, it's just little lessons that you have to fulfill. And after you're like successful with like, you got all the skills mastered to be at that level, you will be there. Obviously, you can buy talent too, but that costs money.
Yeah, well, and talent comes with time, right? Talent just comes with just repeatably doing things even. So so you create that identity and you follow that identity for a while. You do start to reap the benefits. I'm lucky to say that for over a decade now, I've been doing something at least similar the entire time, right? Yeah. So now I've picked up fans along the way. You pick up people at each stage of your life. This job, you get a couple fans. At this job, you get a couple fans. You get a couple clients here, get a couple clients there. And what's cool is as long as you're consistent about like, what is it that you like? Why are you in this? Then that it only grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Now, the problem that happens a lot with people is they jump off of that. They start something new, which is okay if you don't like it. If you fall out in love with something, to be like, I'm doing something new, but just know that you're starting back at zero, and that's okay, right? But like, just know that like you have to build that back up. You have to do possibly years of being consistent to get that story back up to a good place.
Yeah, there's actually like a good point, because like obviously if you jump onto a new wave and you hit the wave at the right time, starting something new will be super easy. You know, work does not have to be hard. If you're at the right time at the right place, you do a little bit effort and you get an insane amount of rewards, you know, and that is very powerful. But it's really hard to hit a wave and, like, let's say a trend before it is a trend, you know. Say you're into Bitcoin mining before Bitcoin was a thing, you know,
right?
And it's like.
And that's a weird place, right? Isn't it? Have you ever been that guy that's like researching something that like it's just weird, and it's
everybody's telling you don't do that.
There's no YouTube video on it. There's not. You're even like, is this weird? Is this a scam? Even I don't know.
Yeah, and then that is like the point where like you can struck gold very easily, and if you do hard work, you can make really big riches, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to find like the new thing that is popping off. Let's be it a new video format. Let's be it like AI or, you know, a new way of implementing stuff. But it's like, it's so hard to do because like you don't know till you try. So it's easier to just continue doing one thing where you have some success and mastery and double down on that and master it. Because like the other thing is like you have to bet consistently on different other things.
Right.
Or you could bet on one thing that maybe works out or does not work out. And then you maybe just wasted your time and potential, you know?
Yeah, and you know, and what I'm about to say, some people don't agree with, some people do. Is that you kind of have to fall in love with what you're doing. I kind of say that a lot. Some people are like, well, no, I'm doing this for the easy money, right? Like I'm learning, you know, how to make email marketing a thing because it's taking off and it's easy money. And I kind of tell them, like, even if you're right, even if it is easy money, even if this is easier than you selling insurance or some other career path, you're not going to be in it for the long haul. Like this is going to get hard. This is going to get to a place where you're beaten down. And if you're not in love with it, that's when you're going to leave. That's when you're going to jump off the horse. So what I kind of tell people too is like, you've really got to identify what you like and what you love. And it may be really subtle and weird. You know, and this doesn't just go for creativity, you know, so if you're out there and you kind of don't know what is your thing, let's say you're even a creative, you make drawings, you do things, but you haven't really connected with what is that thing yet. You have to find, you know, it's kind of what one of our last guests said, you have to follow the energy, right? Just follow what's getting your heart beating. What are you losing time? Where are you getting into the flow state doing? You just have to be very, very big about like, what is that? Even what are the video games you're playing, right? Are you a strategy guy? Are you a first person shooter guy? Like start to really take the things out of your life that you may not even be thinking are creative and being like, well, why do I like that thing? Like what does that do to get my brain going? So for me, I love like a city building game. So City Skylines 2 is going to come out probably a couple weeks after this episode airs, 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm ecstatic. But that kind of tells you a little bit about my personality. I like engineering things. I like that. You like Factorio, same thing. So that tells me that you love production and getting things better and better and better and getting workflows better and better and better. So it's like, be very like big on that. Like, okay, well, these are the things that really get me excited. So I need to really go in that direction. Yeah.
With that being said, like obviously it's really hard finding whatever you love. And I was like in a pickle for a long time where I'm like, okay, everybody's telling me on the internet, do what you love, you know? And I'm like, I don't love anything. So I'm like, what am I going to do now? Doing nothing, you know? And then you go in that circle, you try new things out and you maybe don't find it. And in the end, my solution to the problem was like, I need to stick with one thing. And it is like, it's not as sexy to do hard work when you don't really care about it, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to do hard work when you really care about it and it doesn't feel like work. But it's like, sometimes if you're like lost and you don't find it, I would just do what works in a way. And it can be very helpful because like, I would be in a different place if I would have consistently done my reviews versus like, let's try cinematic videos, you know? What is like, it's basically the opposite of what you recommend, but there's like different people. So I'm like, that helped me to being just like, let's ignore that and just do the thing that kind of works. And then it turned out and I'm like, okay, should have done that earlier. But I'm like, I got lost in that romanticized, like, I need to find my love. But it's tough, you know, because like you maybe are just out of season with your love for something, you know. There's like the honeymoon phase and then
100%. Yeah, it's a cycle. So,
and you don't know where you're at it, but you definitely should figure out.
And I just want to emphasize, it's a cycle. Even I'm going to have a low coming forward. I'm going to have a high coming forward. So it's not like you hit this high or you hit this low and that's it and you're good. Like, no, it's going to keep continuing. Just like ignorance, the cycle of ignorance also continues, right? You like, I got it all figured out. And then right after that, you figure out, actually, I didn't know anything. everything I thought I did, so you have to, so I know some people out there when they say, yo, you have to love what they're like, well, no, I need a job, and you don't have to love a job. But then my argument to that is then, well, okay, fine, fair, but you need to love some part of your life. Do not be that person that builds up all this anger and sadness and self-defeatism because there's no part of your life that you love. So even if you're a bagger at a grocery store or you work at a fast food joint, even if that job is not cool and there's really no way to make it cool or fun, then you need to find ways outside of that to get whatever that is. You need to feel that energy, that positive energy somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that is also very powerful to be like just like a balanced human being and to have like things to talk about, because like it's all about like, some people are really in the hustle grind mindset. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like I'm too much in there, where I'm like, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that, and this could be this and this, But then if it's like about like gaming and fun things, I'm just like, okay, I'm checked out, and I'm like, and I need to relax more, And there's a balance of everything so that you can have a communication. Because most people, they are like dialed in. They're like, okay, I do my sports, and then they're satisfied with their sports needs.
Right.
Then they have their family time, and then they're satisfied with the family time. But you can cut corners if you basically just ignore all that and then just like do one thing. But it will be really hard if you have a good opportunity and that person is like already dialed in and they have those things lined out, and it's like, I spend enough time on working, I don't need to spend more time, so please tell me what's going on in your personal hobby life and be interesting, because you're not interesting if you're only grinding.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. You have to refill that happiness meter, because people can read that. They can read and it's not actually great. I ran into that a lot early in my career, where I would be, designing away at all hours of the day, and no, there's no time to hang out. No, there's no time for girlfriends. No, there's no time to have fun and go to shows and go to things. But people could feel that energy. That people can feel that kind of serious darkness and weirdness there. So, so for me now, like last night I played Sea of Thieves with a friend, which I suck at really badly. And, and I disc golf, we're going, we were just talking about how I'm right after this podcast going to be buying tickets to a show. There's all these kind of things like that. And, logically, does any of it make sense? No. Does any of it connect to being a brand designer, web designer? No. But like what it does is it makes me happy, and it helps create this identity outside of design for Sean. And I think a lot of the times you would think that people don't like that, but they love it. Like people, like your clients will love that. They love that you have different stuff. Now, obviously, if you do weird stuff on the weekends, you may want to keep that to yourself. But if you do stuff that's like not what they're paying you for, that's not bad either. They just want to see you be a happy person. Yeah, and it's easy to hang out with like a happy person, because we talked about the wood chopper, the nice guy and not so nice guy, and like you want to be like, oh yeah, I'll vibe with him. Let's play some pickleball, or whatever. It's like having those hobbies is like very powerful, because it's about a community, and the community is not only work driven. So there's like, so there's more to your personality than just one thing. 100%. And some people that kind of understand that like you get some of your best clients outside of the zone. They're out there doing it. Yeah. They're out there putting in that work and putting in that effort. So it's like, so for me, it's like one thing that I'm trying to do more of is go to things like tonight. And instead of having these goals, which get my heart racing, honestly, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, you got to go. You better get a client out of this. You better make sure to make a good impression. But instead, it's like I'm trying to go to these things more and just be like, whatever. If you don't even talk to anyone, who even cares? Just be chill. And if someone comes up, just try to have a conversation. I had some weird stuff last night. I'll kind of be... I'll put it out there that like, I went to like a gallery opening last night, right? And I had a bad day. I had a real bad day. And it was just nothing from literally the moment I got woken up by the cat at like 5 a.m. to everything the rest of the day, just was bad. And, and I still drug myself to this thing, but I kind of forgot why you shouldn't do that, right? So for us out there that have social anxiety and things, we kind of feel guilty when we don't go to stuff. And so then you kind of drag yourself to something when you're like, I'm having a terrible day, but I really should still go. But I learned that like, it's not really worth it, because you don't have that positive energy. People don't really want to come towards you. So there was a couple of people I even knew at this gallery opening, and I kind of said, hi, OA, and it was just awkward. It was like immediately awkward. It was like, okay, all right, I'll see you around. It was just like really, so, and that was like, wow, but what if I would have gone disc golfing right before then? Or what if I would have done something that kind of would have regenerated my heart right before that? Then it would have been a completely different experience, because I've been to networking things, had a bad day, and it just hasn't worked out, and it just compounds that bad day because like, oh cool, now I went to a thing and I didn't even get a job, great, just add it to the list. Where it's like, I've actually been better about like, you know what, I'm not going to go to this thing, and giving myself permission to not go to stuff if I need to regenerate, you know, and being honest about that, being like, you know what, you know, even with clients, like right now I kind of need more work, so I could be hustling to get client after client, but I'm just recognizing like, Sean, 6 months ago you were begging for air, now you have it, enjoy it, breathe, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the lovely struggle of being a freelance entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever, you know. It's like whatever you do, it's like it's never like content, and it's never easy, and it's just like whatever you do, it's like, oh, I wish I would have done this, but when you do the opposite, it's better, you know. It's like, yeah, it's a tough thing. Yeah,
it's a tough thing. You know, client meetings you have, like I had, you know, on top of all the other stuff yesterday that was kind of going, I had a hard client meeting, right? Where it just, without getting into too many details, it was just, let's just say it just ended up being more difficult than I thought. It was a prospective client. It was going to be a new project. I thought it was going to be kind of an easy call. It didn't end up being an easy call. But throughout the call, I really tried to focus on exude happiness, right? Yeah. So even as they're being kind of a pain in the butt and they're really trying to put up roadblocks really early, instead of being like, well, this is the way it is, okay, and just getting like mad and like getting that kind of compounding that, just being like, oh, that's great. No, I have no problem. Oh, that sounds like you know stuff. Oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, and just being that kind of happiness, you know, because if you can get to that place, and I know that sounded a little fake maybe to people, but if you can at least get your mind to that place of like, you know what, I don't need this to work. This is all, everything's fine. Everything's going to fall into place. And you kind of at least tell yourself that, then it exudes out, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it gives you power, I feel like, even if like you're going head to head with somebody, if you're the happy one, you've already won. If they're the one freaking out and getting all mad and you're just like, no, man, it's cool. No, it's all fine. It's all good. Then you win.
That's so true, because like it's really easy to escalate a situation with like, okay, somebody has a bad day and you're just like, oh, I had a bad day too, let's go. You know, it's just like ramping up. Yeah. So you know, don't do that
100%. You know, yet again, not going to name any names. There's a lot of that in this episode. I could really be just throwing bombs this episode, I feel like, but
we don't
we don't do that. Probably get us some more views, but we're not doing that. But you know, there's some people, so there's two subcontractors that I have in my mind that I was going to be hiring for stuff, and I don't think they watch this podcast, but you know, that I was going to hire them for stuff, but the reason I don't is every time I talk to them, it's defeatism. Every time I talk to them, I'm the victim. Things aren't working out. Woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. And even if it's like not their fault and everything is bad, happening bad for them, it's so unattractive to me, because what do I think when I hear that all the time? I think, well, I'm going to become the problem eventually. I'm going to hire you, and then you're going to be woe is me about me. You're going to be a victim of me then. So no, I don't want you to be a subcontractor, because I don't need a victim. I don't need a hostage.
Yeah, so on that note, there's like a powerful saying. I probably butcher it right now, but it's like, you know, you want to help people who help themselves, because that is not wasted help.
You actually didn't butcher that. I'm really happy with that. Good job. You did good there. You did good there.
Yeah, but basically it's like, you know, people who help themselves, you know, you want to help them because it will lead to things. And then there's people who are defeated and you help them and it goes nowhere. It's wasted time. It's wasted money. They need to want to help themselves. What is like very scary, especially nowadays with like all the homelessness. And if somebody's defeated, it's like you can give them $1 million and it goes right into the pipe and they're smoking it. And it's like, well, there it goes.
Yeah, and it's hard. It generates a place too where people are less trustworthy. So to take it away from homeless people, the same thing happens to us as creatives, right? I run into this all the time.
Pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same exact thing, actually. But no, you know, it's true. It's like where the clients are trying to figure that out too. They're like, are you like the homeless type of creative that wants to be homeless, or are you like the creative that's trying to get better and get out of homelessness? Because I run into that too, where I wish there was some way that I could see the guy on the street and actually see his bank account like hanging over his head, or like actually see if he needs this money, because I think there's a lot of distrust there too of like, do you need it or do you not need it? Do you like this life or do you not like this life? And I feel like the clients have this, the prospective clients have the same thing for us too. They're kind of like, are you just saying you're good at web design because you need my money right now, or do you actually love the game? You know,
I'm just imagining now a new social media network. The bottom, the bank account.
Oh God, yeah, it's a money social network. Oh God.
Yeah, and everybody's just like, okay, who's doing good, who's doing bad, and cool. This should be a movie.
That sounds gross already. Ooh.
Yeah, utopian future. Everybody has a social media Facebook account with his bank account
with a bank account number, how much money you have.
Yeah, but on that note, like if you exuberate or show good energy and you want to do stuff and you're a doer, it shows, and you will be able to, even if you have no money, to land better clients than somebody who is like negative energy and it's drowning them. It's not even like did the person do well beforehand or not. It's more like, oh yeah, I like the vibe, I like the energy, he's going places. Because if you get that feeling like he's small right now, but I think this person will be in 1 or 2 years back there because he puts in that work and that drive, and I'm like, that is where it's like at, Yeah,
I 100% say that, that's true. I mean, so for me, what I started to do years ago is start just working for nonprofits, I think. I was really tired of the corporate world. I was working with big Fortune 500 companies, things like that, and I just wasn't happy with the work. It just felt too corporate. It felt like it wasn't really touching people. And so I started helping nonprofits, That's why I kind of gave that advice, because you'd be surprised, you walk into some of these places and they're just happy to have anyone willing to help them, and that could be such an inspiring thing, right? And when you start to hear cool stories. So one cool story, I'll get into one. This will be kind of quick. This week's been kind of interesting. I have a client when she walked into my studio about 6 or 7 years ago, she was just this older lady, had a clay studio. She had classes and she couldn't fill the classes. She had a web designer that ran away, took the domain, took everything, wouldn't give it, just disappeared, which sadly is fairly common in the world of web designers, where they just disappear and they never hear from them again, and you never get your domain and it's all over. And so she was kind of talking about like, I'm just going to close up shop. I'm not filling the classes. It just seems like this is an upward thing. And I was like, okay. And she had actually come in for like a little flyer, and I kind of talked her into like, well, let's do web design. What's holding you back from doing a web design? She's like, well, I can't afford it. And so I was like, okay, well, I do custom WordPress. I do crazy intro, whatever. I do all these crazy things, but we can do a Squarespace for you. And let me get some branding elements. Let's get a Squarespace. Let's get you up on scheduling online. And from there, we built up over the years, right? We just slowly built up. And the first year, she got 20% more business. Second year, 20% more business. Third year, 20% more business. So now she's at this place where she's making tons of money every year. So she just sold the business just recently. And she's able to retire now. She was able to pay for a kid to go through college. She has like a new car, all these things. And it's just that hits me that fills my heart in such a way that and that client, over all these years, did I get $100,000 off of her, or 50 grand even? No, I didn't. Probably over the 6 or 7 years of her being a client, I maybe cleared $6 grand, $7 grand total, which is such a small figure. And people are like, well, that's not even worth it. But no, it totally is, because I have this real person, this real story, and people really connect with that real story of wow. And just the fact, so this last week was a really emotional thing, because the new owner actually has decided to keep me on, which anyone out there knows that's not for a for sure thing.
Yeah,
but
risky business.
100%. So I was kind of ready to be fired from this whole project, but no, she's actually been an instructor there, so she's seen me help this other lady, and so now we're both working together. And so we put out a newsletter, which is the handing of the baton between the two, and it was super emotional of helping this business even go into the next stage. It's just such a powerful thing. So that's what I would kind of tell people is don't just always look at the dollar signs. I think we get too caught up in that. Sometimes be like, what, there's something here. There's a story here. There's something that is grabbing my heart, and kind of let yourself go in those directions too.
Yeah, the story part is there where it's so that's the most important thing in general, because we learn in freelance, okay, you price the client and you want to basically make them bleed, the more you get from them, the better it is, value is subjective, so
right.
Some people can make a lot of money with your work. Some people can make no money at all with your work, but it's not your fault, because it's on them what they do with the work.
Right.
So it's you kind of have to price them for whatever they could have. What is not the most sexy thing. Then the other approach is you have a fixed price for everything, and the fixed price is okay, $200 to get a website, and it's super easy, fast work. It's no fancy whatever, but you do a lot of it, And then obviously then there's the custom stuff and whatever. But if you only do business for the dollar amounts, it's not real business in a way, you know, because like your story right there is way more impactful and leads to way more good things than just like, oh yeah, I sold that lady $200 worth of, you know, services. And now it's not leading anywhere, you know, and it's like, this is way better.
Yeah. One thing I see a lot in the web design world, a lot of my competitors, you know, that are kind of on my level of what I'm going for. It's funny, you'll go to a website and they'll have like, you know, here's like 50 websites we've done, right? But you can like see that there's no heart in any of them. You can just see it. It's weird. It's just like this kind of templated thing, and they're more proud of like, look how good our conveyor belt is. Look how fast we can get these out for people. And I think, you know, that's not the story that I'm trying to tell. Maybe someone's trying to tell that story of like, you know, but I would say to any creative out there is like, don't lose sight of that like the value over quantity type of thing, right? Because I think you know, you have to be good at business. You have to bring in a lot of business, but it's almost backwards thinking to think that like, if I just make the cheapest product as quick as possible, it's going to get me even more. It's actually the opposite. It's like, if you actually can bake more value. Now, granted, don't get stuck on one project and then just like not move forward, you know, but definitely think of like, how do I improve this each time? You know, and it doesn't matter the size. I've told people that too, where they'll discount a project or they'll work with a nonprofit, but then the quality of work drops through the floor. And I'm like, well, it really shouldn't. Like, you should really try to keep it consistent, even for them. Like, it's part of your identity. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a big guy. So even one thing that I say on my website now is, no matter if you're a Fortune 500 company or you're a micro business down the road, like, I'm still going to give you the top level of what was possible.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, on that note, we are already reaching our limit on this episode, so make sure you subscribe and comment down below. But yeah, Sean, it was a pleasure as usual, so...
Yeah, thank you everybody, and keep watching. We got more coming, more good stuff.
Yeah, see you in another one.